Really? You're firing me? You've got to be kidding me. My soon-to-be ex-boss was sweating a little on his bald head as he looked at me and my wife Mary in the back room of his restaurant. Gob, look, I'm sorry, but business is business. I'm sure the traffic will increase once more is known about Chef HP. Charles. I was still in a state of shock. Oh, now I understand. You're letting me go so you can keep that fool in the kitchen. My boss raised his hands in a hapless gesture. Chef HP. Charles is like my star player. We all know that chefs are the rock stars that bring customers into a restaurant today. I had to carve out time somewhere. I couldn't hide the disgust in my voice. You act like old Charlie is Gordon Ramsay or Wolfgang Puck. Mary grabbed my arm. Well, Gob, he had his own cooking show. You mean that failed reality show? I interrupted. That didn't even last a full season on the internet. My boss fussed, defending his money hole. Chef HP? Charles's show had some good fans. And a cookbook, my wife added. Wonderful, I said dryly. Doctor. Seuss had a cookbook too. I don't see many customers filling our tables to order the famous green eggs and ham. The boss handed me an envelope. When Chef HP gets this sorted out, we can consider your return. Chef HP. Charles has talent. Hiring him is the surest way to attract a new base. I shook my head. Nothing is foolproof for a reasonably talented fool. He grumbled. I know it's hard, but I upped Mary's bid a little to help. Mary, my wife, squeezed my hand as I picked up my last paycheck. We'd only been married 6 years. She was an assistant chef at the restaurant we both worked at, or rather, used to work at. The owner was a pot-bellied trust fund kid who loved watching cooking shows and decided he would open and run a restaurant. In reality, he couldn't run up a flight of stairs, let alone a restaurant. Mary, in truth, was the heart of the kitchen. She had always dreamed of being a chef with a capital letter. Mary worked her way up from one establishment to the next, having been in the industry since she was 16 years old. However, to rise in restaurants in today's market, you had to have the star power of a renowned chef in the kitchen. Mary, a single mom, could never afford any of the culinary schools, either here or abroad, that seemed to train today's rock star chefs. I tried to help. All of our vacations were working vacations. A dairy and cheese seminar in Wisconsin, winemaking techniques and issues in Napa Valley, seafood from net to plate in Maine. We even spent our honeymoon wandering through olive orchards in Italy, learning about virgin, extra virgin, and dozens of varieties of olive oil. Not that I'm complaining, but the food from these events had me struggling to maintain a consistent waist size. Mary, on the other hand, didn't seem to gain an ounce, which was rare for any chef. It was mostly a combination of her metabolism and fanatical workout schedule. I know that Mary secretly dreamed of hosting her own cooking show and didn't want to be a fat female chef. So she always kept herself in shape for that magical phone call that still hasn't come. Again, I'm not complaining about her metabolism and workouts. To me, that was a bonus. Many will say Mary was average looking. If that were true, I'd take average and plain Mary any day and twice on Sunday. It just so happened that our love life was very frequent. Again, I have no complaints about either frequency or quality. Mary squeezed my hand as I accepted my last paycheck, and my boss continued. Gob, you'll bring Pablo up to speed, won't you? I was about to tell him to back off. The rich asshole's insolence is not only that he replaced me with an exploited illegal, but that he wants me to train him to be my deputy. I leaned back in my chair. You want me to have Pablo handle the waitresses and kitchen staff? You do realize this is just a lawsuit just waiting to happen. My soon-to-be ex-boss waved his hand. It's the restaurant business. Passions run high. I bit my tongue when Mary spoke up. Don't worry, I'll deal with Chef HP. He's just blabbering away trying to impress the kitchen staff. If he did even a quarter of what he claims, this place wouldn't have a single woman on staff. Mary squeezed my hand again to stop me talking and lifted me out of my chair. The ride home was brisk. I really thought Pablo was going to leave, Mary said, as she tuned the car radio to my favorite station. I had to suppress a smirk at this act of Mary's, for music selection was a daily battle for us. A truce was reached. I would put on my station when I drove to work, and she would put on hers when she drove home. Mary ceded her turn to me. Pablo is a very proud man and protective of his friends and family, I replied. Everyone knew Pablo's story. Along with his wife and 2 young children, he had fled a town in Central America. Making it all the way to the border, he fought off gangs and predators and led a small group to rescue after smugglers left them to die in the desert without water. I rubbed my eyes before continuing. That asshole boss has me cornered. He knows I can't let the restaurant fail because we only have 1 paycheck now, and he also knows I won't let Pablo down. Mary shook her head. Pablo is the hardest working guy there. If he left, every one of the kitchen staff would follow him. He is like the godfather of that back room. I am glad you convinced him you would be fine and everyone needed the job for their family. Especially Pablo, his wife is expecting again. Now, Job, I know you will land on your feet. You are the best prep chef around. For those who don't know, if the chef is the heart of the kitchen, the prep chef is the brains. The chef makes sure everything from the salads to the chopped onions are ready to go. The chef makes sure that the fresh seafood ordered by the chef is truly fresh. The quality is the same as what was sourced from the suppliers, and all the necessary ingredients are available. Just as any army is only as good as its sergeants, any restaurant is only as good as its chefs. Mary, I'm not worried about Pablo because I'm not married to him. I'm worried about you because I'm married to you. Mary tapped me lightly on the shoulder. Don't tell me you're jealous of Chef HP. Charles, she laughed. He's a goofball, of course, but Chef Charles does have some give. Do you know what school he went to in France? The people he knows? Places he's been? I made a gagging sound. Oh, please, Mary, this cook is a poser and you're bypassing him. Also, please stop calling this fool a chef like he has a doctorate in medicine and cures cancer. Mary sighed. I know you don't like HP, but I could learn a lot from him. I made a gagging sound again. You should enlighten me on some of his pearls of wisdom. This is the man who asked why sour cream has an expiration date on it. Gob, be nice. We both know that Chef GP, Charles is a narcissist, but you have to be to get to his level. It's like a disease with him. Great. Everything that used to be a sin is now a disease. One good thing about selfish people, they don't talk about other people. Mary ignored me and continued. For example, he told me I should be called T. Mary twos instead of just Mary. I shook my head. T? Mary too? Sounds like a drywall bolt from the hardware store or the new robot from the Terminator movie. Mary punched me in the shoulder again. Gob, you know perfectly well that my first name is Teresa. Mary is my middle name, and everyone called me Mary so as not to confuse me with my mom. Besides, Mary is such a common, boring name. I suppose old Charlie told you that. Mary shrugged her shoulders. You know how everyone chats in the kitchen when it's not busy. Yeah, the kitchen and the restaurant in general wasn't very lively. Where are the throngs of hungry followers that old Charlie was going to bring? Mary sighed before answering. Well, we've gotten more into the catering business. Mary, catering started to flourish before His Highness Charles came on the scene to take all the credit. We both know that catering only blossomed because of your food and Pablo and his crew busting their asses to make things work. The problem is, when you do something right the first time, no one appreciates how hard it was. I played my trump card. Let's look at this as an opportunity. Screw all of them. From the day you started watching Julia Childs on PBS TV, you've wanted to go to a fancy culinary school. Let's ditch that mansion and your status Lexus and send you to your dream school. Mary bit her lip. Gob, did you win the lottery and not tell me? As I recall, our bank account was at 0. Mary, I'll cash out my retirement account. We'll take out a student loan, whatever it takes. It's an investment in you, in us. Do you want to go to school too? Hell no. It's your dream I want to fulfill. You know I can always find something to do. Carpentry, plumbing, I'll work at McDonald's in Paris if I have to. Mary was still chewing her lip, deep in thought, but she answered nothing. I was wrong. Turns out you can be the best cook in the world, but if there are no openings, you'd better find something else to do. It wasn't really a problem. My parents hammered into my head from an early age that there would always be a job for those willing to work. Even today, I can hear my father's voice. Son, there are 2 types of people in the world. Those who work and contribute and those who feed off the labor of others. There is no job that is beneath you. Anyway, I did what I was best at and took any job that paid. Delivering lost luggage from the airport, delivering pizzas, cleaning up after the county fair, anything. If it paid, I did it. When I wasn't hustling for $1, I was working on the house. The Mac mansion we bought at a foreclosure sale was a monster that Mary just had to have, and a notorious money pit. It seemed like I was rebuilding the damn place from the ground up. After adding the amount we'd paid and what we'd spent so far, I think we were probably at a disadvantage. Looking at the work ahead, I wondered if we would ever get our money's worth for the place. I kept those thoughts to myself as Mary was very stressed out at the restaurant. The last 10 months since I was kicked out have not been the best. I know she's been trying very hard, even using the ridiculous name T. Mary 2 in an attempt to drum up business. Many times Mary came home almost in tears. Damn it, Gob, I don't know how much longer I can take this. Another waitress quit today. I shook my head and Mary frowned. Yeah, I know you warned me about Chef HP. Charles, but ever since HP. Charles took away Pablo's inventory. It's gotten worse. That idiot keeps ordering the wrong stuff and the suppliers are ripping us off left and right. We ran out of salt last night, for God's sake. How the hell does a restaurant run out of salt? I tried to sympathize, but I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying, I told you so. Mary was getting worked up. I'm just tired of playing Little Miss Diplomat in this place. Mary, diplomacy is saying cute doggy until you find a rock big enough. Mary continued as if I hadn't spoken. Besides, HP, Charles's damn Italian car is always in for repairs, and he considers me his personal chauffeur. Now I shook my head. What does old Charlie expect from a Fiat? Everybody knows that Fiat stands for fix it again, Tony. Mary took off her shoes. I'm worried that Pablo will be gone every day. So, Mary, Pablo and Charlie still don't play fetch? Mary threw me a dirty look. Ever since HP? Tried to hit on the cute new young Latino dishwasher, and Pablo put a knife to HP's Chef Charles's groin. It's been like the Jets and Sharks in the kitchen. I couldn't keep from laughing. Did Charlie really think Pablo would tolerate him peeping on his goddaughter? Mary threw up her hands. It's not just HP. Charlie's fault. Half the Hispanic community in this town are Pablo's goddaughters. Gee, Mary, do you think maybe old Charlie should keep his hands in the kitchen and leave the barely legal help alone? Gob, he's under a lot of stress right now. Even our restaurant business has suffered. I was surprised by this information. Really? I thought that was the only pearl still shining. Mary made a grimace before answering. It was. Then we started getting complaints about Chef HP. Charles at events. Apparently, the hosts didn't like him walking around the room and mingling with the guests. Apparently, what works with attendees sitting at tables in our building isn't really appropriate for events where food is served. Old Chaley must have been thrilled with that news. Mary looked at me with that look every husband knows. Gob, stop it, please. I'm having a hard enough time as it is. I stroked her back. Mary, old Charlie has a multi-year contract, so he's not going anywhere. You, on the other hand, better get over your losses and leave. I turned Mary around to face me. I know you have an application for culinary school in Paris in a folder on your laptop. You're no longer a 17-year-old helper in the back of a store. You can compete with a top chef. Pull the trigger, you know I've got your back. In response, Mary hugged me tightly. But I never got a yes. A few weeks later, I was plastering the guest room when the phone rang. Job, it's Pablo. I need a favor from you. Sure, Pablo. What can I do for you? I replied, wiping my hands. In heavily accented English, Pablo said, We were working in catering, but we left a tub of preparation in the restaurant. I know you still have the key. Can you bring it here? I'll make sure you get paid. Pablo, those are magic words. What's the address? Gob, I'll send you the address. Just bring it to the truck, okay? When I got there, it was the middle of the afternoon, and the weather was just starting to get colder. This is probably the last outdoor event for a while, I thought, as I carried the aluminum tray to the van parked in the driveway of the luxury home. The van had a side window, allowing it to be used as a van pool. For some reason, all of our employees gathered at the side window of the van. A few guys were pressing their cell phones against the one-way glass. ¿Qué pasa, amigos? Where's Pablo? The workers looked around in surprise. Most said something in Spanish, and they all started crawling away from the truck. However, I was the one who was in for a surprise when I peeked out the window. Chef Ashby. Charles had Mary bent over the counter. I was stunned as if I had been hit with an axe. My brain refused to accept the images my eyes were sending. I opened the window. Hey, Charlie, don't forget to wash your hands when you're done with that sucker. I hear the health inspector is coming today. The HP stopped mid-stroke when Mary turned around at my voice. She twitched convulsively, but it was too late. I felt myself losing consciousness. Mary, please don't bring home any leftovers this time. And in fact, please don't come home at all, ever. Turning on my heels, I was slowly trotting towards my car when I realized I was still holding the aluminum tray of leftovers. As I passed Charles's Fiat, I opened the door and dumped it all into the driver's seat. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember opening the front door. I don't remember going out on the back porch or getting in the chair. The next thing I can remember is the phone ringing and Pablo's voice. How long have you known Pablo? Working. This is the first time I've heard from Puta's wife, Maria. The crew told me the chief was bragging. Of course the man is talking utter nonsense. No one believes him. The crew laughs at him. The chef claims he put on a show today to prove who's boss in the kitchen. That's why I'm asking you to come along. If it's not true, don't worry. I'm sorry it's true. I'm sorry I threw away your cooking tub, Pablo. Pablo laughed. What difference does it make? Puta, Mary's wife, tried to get a toy car and come after you. The damn toy car wouldn't start. What's a car that won't start because of chopped onions? The crew wouldn't give Mary a ride, so she finally called an Uber car. Just then I heard the front door open. I gotta go, Pablo. Looks like the chicken came home. Finish with that bait. I've got plenty of pretty Latina girls for you. Smart as whips, hot as hell in bed, also loyal to a man and fierce as wild dogs with your family. Thanks, Pablo. I'll keep that in mind. I disconnected the call and Mary walked through the sliding glass door to the back porch. We stood looking at each other. Mary's makeup was a mess, her eyes red. She moved her lips a few times, but no words came out. I got bored with this staring contest and started checking my email on my smartphone. It looked like I'd gotten quite a few messages in the last hour. Job, look at me. I sighed and looked up at her. Yes, Mary? What am I supposed to be looking at? Because all I see is a cheating whore. Mary froze for a moment, shocked by my words, before gathering her wits and speaking. Gob, things were not what they seem. As she spoke, I opened one of the attachments in the email and held the phone up to Mary, turning the clip on full volume. The screen was facing Mary, so I couldn't see the video, but the audio was clear enough, with Chief HP. Charles's voice murmuring. Mary snatched the phone out of my hands just as her voice came from the speaker on the screen. Mary tried in vain to turn off the video, but the sound wouldn't stop. Finally, in desperation, she pulled the battery out of the phone and threw both the phone and the battery at me. This is disgusting, she screamed, covering her ears with her hands. Please delete this horrible scene immediately. Really? I asked, putting the phone back together. It's not like you felt that way at that moment. Besides, I couldn't delete it even if I wanted to. Mary lowered herself into a nearby chair and grabbed my hand. Gob, please listen to me. What I'm about to say is the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Things just got out of control, but I did it for us. No shit? I said dryly, removing her hand from mine. She sighed to pull herself together. This was never supposed to happen. What's done is done. It's not worth crying over spilled milk. Or over a broken cherry, I added. Gob, please, you have to let me tell the whole story. I think you've already laid it out, so why tell some sad non-story? Mary ignored my comment and continued talking. It all started when I had to drive Chief HP, Charles when his car was in the shop. He asked me to drive him to a fertility clinic. Mary took a deep breath. Celebrities get pretty good money for their samples. I started to get up, but Mary insisted. Gob, stay. Things are getting crazy and stupid around here. So, Mary, the incident in the truck was the wise and sensible part? HP. Thought it wasn't fair that he was doing all the work and the clinic was getting all the money. So he set up his own website. Who were you? His assistant? No, not at first. I just did the bookkeeping and paid my share at once. I wanted so badly to go to cooking school in France, but I didn't want to use your money. It was a quick way to get some extra income. It was all so harmless. She lowered her gaze to her hands. Then HP started having difficulties. Yep, helped him. Mary, please stop. I'm going to be sick. Job, I swear to God, it's true. It's no big deal. It's nothing bad. Besides, I insisted on a bigger share. I shook my head. That might be the worst bedtime story ever. Wait, I held up my hand. I want to finish this tale. I'm already doing something, I said, pulling my car keys out of my pocket. I'm going to work. Please don't be here when I get back. Hindsight is 20/20ths, and truth be told, I should have stayed home. And if I knew then what I know now, you can bet I would have left my happy ass at home, even if the slob's wife was still there. But bills had to be paid, and since I was single again, someone had to make money. Besides, who else would deliver pizza? The drizzling rain turning to downpour matched my gloomy mood. However, as you can guess, I was distracted, because if I hadn't been so distracted, I wouldn't have been so focused on the green traffic signals and would have been better off paying attention to the semi-truck trying to run a yellow light that had long since turned red. The squeal of tires, the clink of breaking glass, the sound of spinning metal, and then, as the song goes, boom, boom! Out go the lights. It's so cliché to say you woke up to the beeping of machines in the hospital, but that's what woke me up. My throat was dry, my mouth was as dry as the desert. A plastic pitcher of melting ice chips in a cup stood on the side table. However, when I tried to move, I was restrained by a massive tubing in my left arm. My left arm also had a plaster cast the size of a baseball glove on it. At the same time, my right leg was suspended from some sort of cable and pulley contraption. Following the flushing of the toilet, the water flowed and the door to the bathroom to the left of the bed opened. Pablo stepped out of it, a wide smile on his face when he saw me looking at him. Hello, my friend. Pablo saw me pointing to the water container and quickly grabbed a pitcher of water and ice chips, poured the liquid into a cup, and added a straw before handing it to me. Gob, you have to drink slowly. Pablo picked up a wired device from my bed and pressed a button. I'm calling the hospital to let them know you're awake. How are you feeling? I quickly drank all the water and coughed before handing the cup back to him. Well, Pablo, I feel like I got hit by a truck. I pointed to my hanging leg. I've lost my job, lost my wife, and now I've also broken my leg. Can my life get any worse? A grim expression appeared on Pablo's face. I'm sorry you broke your leg. Well, I was never such a good dancer, but then I always danced like a white man. My other leg hurts like hell. I hope the doctor brings a better painkiller. Job! Pablo interrupted me and pointed to the edge of my bed. I followed Pablo's finger. Under the sheets below my left knee, where the bump on my calf ankle and foot should be, there was nothing. I flipped the sheets off. There was only a bandaged stump under my left knee, about halfway down my calf. Where the hell is my leg? Pablo made soothing motions in my direction, while frantic beeps came from various monitors. Gob, please calm down. I saw your truck. It looks like a broken beer can ripped into small pieces. You're lucky to be alive. At that moment, a doctor in a white coat came through the door and began touching various machines to drown out their noise. Listen to your friend. It's a miracle you're in one piece, and only God knows why you didn't bleed out. I pointed to my missing spur. That doesn't look like a miracle to me, damn it. The doctor started pushing buttons on a nearby device connected to my left arm. I'm going to increase your dose of pain medication, and the button by your bedside will allow you to control the flow to a limited extent. But if you don't calm down, I'm going to ask the staff to keep you under sedation. I was furious, my anger fighting the flow of medication. That's easy for you to say, Doc. You're not the kind of cripple who's going to spend the rest of his life being cranky with hoppin' jokes. Pablo had a strange look on his face as he took my right hand. Job, it is with great respect that I say to you, macho up, you are not Marika. Many men in my village would give both legs to be in your shoes to get into this country. You mean my one shoe now, Pablo? Said I while the painkiller put my brain to sleep. settling it into a cozy cocoon. The next time I opened my eyes, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. It had been almost a week since that day in the room with Pablo. I had gone through the 7 stages of grief associated with losing a limb. I had come to terms with it, but I wasn't happy. Hearing a sound, I turned my head and saw Mary standing in the doorway. "Gob, can I come in?" she asked. I was still making a little noise, pointing to my plastered leg and missing foot. "I can't kick you out, can I?" Mary put a smile on her face and walked nervously into my room, sitting down in the only chair. "Gob, I'm so sorry." "I've been here for over a week, Mary." "Were you so sorry the first time you decided to visit me? Why did you even bother?" Mary waved her hands in confusion. "I was just so scared and confused, after you know everything in my future." "I'm sorry, Mary, I was busy trying to survive while I had body parts removed. So you do realize that your future wasn't my main concern." Mary bit her lip. "Yeah, I don't know what to say. I made a mistake and there's nothing I can do about it now, except to say I'm sorry." She looked at me defiantly. "Don't tell me you've never made a mistake." I tried unsuccessfully to sit up on the bed. "Oh, I made a huge mistake a few years ago when I married the woman I loved, who turned out to be a cheating whore." Mary flinched at my words. "Gob, I can only say I'm sorry, but that won't change the past. I'm talking about the future now." She leaned forward to lean on the bed rail. "Let's do what you were talking about before. Let's go to Paris. I'll go to culinary school. We'll start fresh, like newlyweds. We have no future here. You know, Pablo and almost all the kitchen staff quit. We'll be able to leave as soon as you're well and back on your feet." "You mean on your feet, Mary?" She blushed. "You know what I mean. We should have done this a long time ago. Let's not procrastinate any longer." "And all this at my expense, Mary? You cheat and get a free trip to Paris, plus tuition at a world-class school? Quite the reward for your adulterous actions." No job, not your 401k money," said Mary, standing up. "We'll use the proceeds from the sale of the house." "The house isn't worth a damn yet. What kind of fool would pay as much for it as we own, and so much to make a profit?" Mary clapped her hands together. "Chef HB? Charles said he'd buy it. He'll even pay more than the realtor said, and the house will be worth—" She stopped when she saw the look on my face. Chef Charles really liked the renovations you did to the master bedroom bathroom. Tell me, Mary, how does old Charlie know what the master bedroom or her bathroom looks like?" I got my answer as her face turned beet red. "Gob, it's not what you think." Nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. I shook my head. "Gob, you have to believe me. I don't have to do anything but pay my taxes and die, Mary. I mean, T. Mary too? Or do you have a different name now?" "Damn it, Gob. I told you the reason. Leave it Mary or T. Mary or whatever you call yourself now. But just like you can call shit a rose and it'll still be shit, a cheating whore remains a cheating whore no matter what the name is." I raised my anesthetic pump. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to give you a couple shots so you don't die from the pain." An annoyed expression appeared on Mary's face. "Damn it, Job. If you don't talk to me right now, I'm going to leave." The medication was starting to take effect. "You're a damn liar, Mary." "Because I'm damn drunk and you're still here." I think I heard Mary yell, "We're done! I'm not coming back." Mary kept her word and I didn't hear from her for several days. However, I did meet her bailiff who handed me the divorce papers. They looked like they were typed from an anti-male internet site because they required everything but my remaining right leg. Even though I was weaned on painkillers, I still laughed at Mary's demand in her divorce papers. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, I thought, as I tossed the papers into the trash can. Sure enough, I missed the tiny garbage can and they fell at the feet of a man shoeing Italian loafers. I looked up from the shoes and saw the face of Chef H.P. Charles. "How are you, pal?" he said, entering the room as if it belonged to him. I heard the heart monitor above my bed rattle as I struggled with myself. "With all due respect, Charlie." I saw him wrinkle his nose. "Please just back off and get out of here." I grabbed the nurse call button and pressed it to summon the night nurse on duty. "Chef Ashby." Charles only grinned. "Quite a mouthful." Obviously, Charlie, you have a hearing problem. You've been on the other side of the pond, so I'm sure you know what off means. Take your time, Gob. After all, we have a lot of common interests and share a lot of things. You know, a love of fine food, good wine, Mary. Although I realize I'm still ahead of you. You're right, Charlie. I'll reconsider my statement. Both you and that whore can bugger off. HP. Charles only laughed. Come on, Gob. We're both men of the world. Spend a lot of time in the kitchen trenches. You know how the ladies can't keep their aprons on. Besides, your wife is bad. She can't even cook. You should thank me for sparing you from her for a while. He sat back in his chair. Now, how about we make a deal on your house? Everybody wins. So both you and she win, and I'll buy the house in return. He walked over to the bed railing and pointed to my feet. I doubt you'll be able to run around in a house that big. I'll even drop a few thousand on the crappy furniture. I'll need it until my custom-made furniture arrives. He winked at me. I already like the king-sized bed in your bedroom. Now already I was getting angry, thinking, where the hell was the night nurse? A smug expression appeared on his face. Job, admit that you are defeated. Got it? Defeated? Haha. But seriously, you also need to call off that buddy of yours and his mariachi band. What the hell are you talking about? Said I. About your buddy Pablo from the southern border. He told your old lady Mary to stay out of the house. He hinted at how dangerous it could be for a single woman. The damn spy said break-ins and home invasion robberies are a tragic common occurrence in even the nicest neighborhoods. Look, these sit-ins at my house aren't my style. I kept hitting the call button for the night nurse. HP? Charles looked back at the door and then said in a loud whisper, Maybe you want to see what a kitchen stiletto looks like. I grabbed it and Charles let out a high-pitched scream that sounded like a woman's. Charles faltered as I grabbed my full container of liquid and poured the liquid over his head and face. As Charles jumped up, the night nurse finally appeared. This night nurse was my favorite nurse, even if this particular night nurse wasn't exactly the angel in white. In fact, my night nurse was a muscular bald man who was 6'4" tall, and he looked more like a power athlete than Florence Nightingale. Because he was a power athlete, and lest you think he'd come into nursing for steroids, this gentle giant had a skillful light touch that made you rarely feel the prick of a needle. The nurse grabbed Chef HP. Charles from behind in a bear hug. As they struggled, I yelled, This crazy man must be an escaped patient from the asylum. The crazy bastard tried to drink from my bottle and then started attacking me. A muscular nurse easily lifted the kicking Charles off the ground, and then hospital staff and security rushed into my room. It had been several months since I had been discharged from the hospital, and although I didn't think it was possible, my life was getting worse and worse. Pablo stopped by to bring me some home-cooked food from his wife. It was just a respite from the takeaway fast food and pizza delivery that had become my new diet, the boxes that littered the kitchen. He sat next to me and looked at the pile of unopened bills on the kitchen table. Gob, many of them are overdue and have a final warning. That's going to lead to more debt. I shrugged. Pablo, what can I do? My bank account is empty because Mary withdrew all the money before I even got out of the hospital. She also got some legal beagle to freeze access to my 401k retirement accounts until the divorce is resolved. Thank goodness I still have a credit card. But I'll soon run out of that too. I stacked the last wad of bills in a stack. Mary must have found someone to pay the legal bills because we didn't have any real savings. Pablo picked up the latest threatening letter from Mary's lawyer. You think Punta Mary is getting money from the chief? I grinned before replying, absolutely sure. I bet old Chief Charlie is still mad at me because the hospital put him to sleep during our little run-in and kept him in the psych ward for 48 hours. Laughing, I continued. The fact that I hid his wallet and cell phone when they fell into my bed during our wrestling match made his release from the psych ward. Ahem. Complicated. Thank God there were no cameras around. The ADA called it a big misunderstanding, but no charges were filed. Pablo smiled as well. Yes, thank you for that. I shared my wallet with some of the less fortunate people in my neighborhood. Pablo shook his head. I couldn't believe Chef Charlie was loco enough to write his password on an ATM card. His phone has allowed many people to talk to family they haven't spoken to in a long time. I pointed to another stack of papers. However, I'm sure I'll be rewarded in full now. You see this mountain of paperwork? It's all subpoenas, legal letters, inspection requests, hearing dates, blah, blah, blah. I think I have a court order out on me now because I'm just ignoring it all. A look of fear appeared on Pablo's face. Like most immigrants, he was afraid of any government agency. His only experience was of the corrupt civil authority in his country. Gob, aren't you afraid of the police when you go to the hospital to learn to walk? I laughed. What, you mean rehab? It's no good, Pablo. Looks like Mary kicked me off the insurance at our old job. Technically, I should still be insured, since the accident happened before we broke up. But insurance companies are worse than any corrupt government. They hide behind walls of rules and regulations, backed by armies of lawyers determined to make you jump through hoops and claims until you die or give up. I wiggled in my seat. That time I went to rehab was a joke. Broken equipment with one ancient therapist. We both looked around the unfinished house, lit by candles and lanterns since the power was out. Pablo stood up. I have to go now, but Gob, why don't you stay with me? My family will take care of you. I was touched. Pablo was barely making ends meet. But even when his family crammed into a tiny room, he always tried to talk me into moving in with him. No thanks, Pablo. You know, as soon as I leave this house, Mary will come and claim it. Pablo shook his head. No way. Mary thinks that if she shows up here, Pablo's big bad Latin friends will pay her a nasty visit. Now I laughed. Where did Mary get that idea? Pablo put an innocent expression on his face and spoke in broken English in a peasant voice. I don't know, senor. I am just a poor gardener who is happy to receive your old clothes to distribute to my many ninos on the Cinco de Mayo. Shaking my head, I held out my hand to shake Pablo's. Can you take me to the back porch before you go? Because of the insurance company's games, I hadn't even been fitted for a prosthetic. Although I could jump and crawl around the house, it was exhausting. Pablo found me an old wheelchair, and while I wasn't complaining, this relic looked made of cast iron and just as heavy. Pablo stood behind me and grunted as he started pushing. Are you sure you want to go outside? It's as cold as a politician's heart out there. Pablo, you grew up in the goddamn tropics. You wear a coat when the wind blows hard. And me. I was born here. I don't even wear socks until it snows. He ruffled my hair as we rolled around on the floor. You have the wild hair of a mountain man. Next time I'll bring my wife and she'll bring her scissors and razor. Let's make you beautiful for the Latino ladies. Pablo was right. I hadn't had a haircut in months and my hair was tangled. I didn't bother shaving anymore, so I had a beard that ZZ Top would be proud of. Pablo, tell your wife to cool her ardor. I don't think a one-legged man without a job has anything to offer. You're wrong, Gob. You have a green card to offer many candidates. I shook my head. Fine, the only thing your ladies need is that I won the contest. Pablo patted my shoulder. True, a green card is better than a big wallet, but the Latino women hiding out here are poisoning their sisters for a chance at both a green card and a good man like you. I leaned forward to unlock the sliding glass door leading to the porch. These double-paned, nearly bulletproof monstrosities were standard on all the McManusons' neighborhood homes, heavy as vault doors. Well, there goes my love marriage gone to hell, Pablo. Could a green card marriage be any worse? Pablo waved his hand as we walked onto the porch. Love? Love, short-lived. Now respect, commitment to each other, and honor to make it work. It will last, and you will be there for each other after your puppy love is gone. As I sat on the back porch and smoked, I realized Pablo was right. It was colder than my old wife Maurice's heart and my closet of sweatpants. A shirt and an old sweater was no good. February was the cruelest month in the state. The temperature dipped below freezing most of the time, and the sky was permanently gray, the ground was permanently gray, and even the people were gray. If it weren't for the occasional freezing rain, you wouldn't be able to tell one day from another. Looking at the huge dirt lot that was my backyard, I tried to think about what the future held. There weren't many choices. Even the best options were as bleak as this gloomy February day. My musings were interrupted by a joyous child's squeal. Through the slats of the backyard fence, I saw a little boy in a bright red sweatshirt playing catch-up with a small barking dog. What I wouldn't give to be that happy again. Maybe it was better to join Mom and Dad at the pearly gates. I was distracted from my gloomy thoughts by the barking of a dog. It was not a playful yapping, but a furious barking. Looking over the fence, I didn't see a preschooler anywhere. I lazily lifted myself out of the seat of my wheelchair as best I could and looked for him. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of red. A tiny hand pierced the surface of the open hot tub. The pleasure I had been enjoying was instantly gone. Jesus! A man is drowning in that damn hot tub! My mind screamed. I pulled out my cheap prepaid cell phone and dialed 911. Once the operator came on the line, I didn't wait for her to start talking. I have a person drowning at 2312 Nova Drive. Send an ambulance. The person is in a hot tub at 2312 Nova Drive. Stay on the line, sir. I'm dispatching the fire department. I need more information from you. What's your name? I stared dazedly at the phone. What, you need a date? I said, shoving the phone into my pocket and rolling my chair off the porch. I really hadn't thought this through too well. When the right wheel hit the edge of the cement, the whole chair tipped over and I sprawled out in the dirt, thick as mud in a World War I trench. Shit, I exclaimed, pulling my face out of the half-frozen mud. The cast on my right leg prevented me from crawling, and the other, shorter leg wasn't much better. The cheap cell phone in my pocket shattered into many plastic shards. I rolled over and crawled on my elbows as fast as I could, the mire filling my cast, and only one thought bouncing around in my brain. Get to that damn man! After what seemed like an eternity, I found myself at the dividing wooden fence. There was no way I could reach the top to climb over, so I pounded the boards as hard as I could. I wasn't sure if it was the bones in my numb hand or the fence breaking, but I saw a splinter in the wood. Ignoring the splinters, I ripped off a board and made a hole barely big enough to fit through. Once through the fence, I saw a small dog, still barking furiously, running around the hot tub. The man was nowhere to be seen as I crawled up on my elbows to the tub and leaned over the edge. He was lying motionless on the bottom, the drawstring of his sweatshirt snagged on the drain and held him underwater. I plunged my upper body into the tub, pulling him out. I laid him on the floor, leaving his bright red clothes half in the water. Positioning the CPR boy, I silently took back all the curses I'd heaped on my late father for making me spend 4 high school summers sweating in the hot sun as a lifeguard at a kiddie pool for minimum wage instead of a cool job at a pretzel stand at the mall with my friends. Muscle memory flooded over me as I automatically repeated all the ABCs of CPR: airway, breathing, circulation. The classic Bee Gees disco song, Staying Alive, ancient even in the days before we learned to compress time, played in my head at full volume. Using the light touch necessary for him, I began CPR. After what seemed like an eternity, my CPR efforts were rewarded when he began to expectorate water. I was turning him into the correct position when something crashed into my side. I felt my ribs crack as I fell and groaned in pain, trying not to fall on the young man. Someone jumped on my back, long nails slashed across my face, sharp teeth dug into my neck, and a crazed female voice screamed in my ear. Get away from my son. I will destroy you. This wild woman was in mama bear protecting cub mode. Stop! Shouted I, holding out my hand. Your son fell in the hot tub. He's drowning. I'm trying to save his life. Her eyes narrowed as she examined my one-legged and long-haired, mud-covered beard. Then she looked at the wet sweatshirt that was half hanging in the tub, the drawstring still tangled in the drain. Her demeanor changed in a flash. She ran over to me and dropped to her knees next to her son. He coughed but still hadn't withdrawn. She grabbed my shoulders, a wild look in her eyes. It was panic. You have to save him. I will do everything. Sirens could be heard in the background. I pointed outside. It's the cavalry. Go now. Get the fire rescuers here as fast as you can. Fast. Every second counts. She stood up, stumbling as she tried to run fast. I turned my attention back to the guy. His breathing was shallow, but the cold must have caused him to go into shock. I pulled off my mud-stained sweater, then took off my shirt. Wrapping the driest part around him, I pulled him against me, trying to transfer my body heat to him and rubbing his limbs to restore circulation. The gate in the fence opened and 2 paramedics jumped out to me, followed by my mother and a police officer. The older of the paramedics, a gray-haired veteran of similar situations, assessed the circumstances in a flash. Quickly taking off his jacket without even turning around, he said into his partner's radio, "We've got 10, 32." I pushed the guy into his arms and he wrapped him in his heavy jacket. I wiped the dirt off my forehead before I spoke. He lay there for about 3 minutes, unresponsive. CPR brought him back to life, but his pulse is weak. "He's going into shock." The senior paramedic nodded, turning to the police officer. "Code 3, let's go." The officer grabbed the frantic mother by the arm. "Come with me, we'll escort them to St. Joseph's Hospital on Cupertino Street." The group sped through the gate, and as it slammed shut, I realized it was now just me and the little dog in the cold. The adrenaline faded as I sat down on the concrete slab on which the hot tub stood. I was covered head to toe in mud, shirtless in the cold, my hair and beard wet. With no one around to help and nowhere to shelter from the outside elements, a single thought ran through my brain. I'm totally screwed. I'm totally screwed. I assessed my situation. There was only one logical conclusion that could be drawn. Yeah, I'm really screwed. The little dog ran around me in circles, happy to have a new friend. I took him in my arms and held him tightly against me, trying to keep him warm or at least shield him from the biting wind. The puppy began to lick my chin. I raised my face to the gray clouds overhead and shouted to the heavens. "You think this is funny, Lord? It's a good joke to leave me out here to die of hypothermia." Either in response or by coincidence, a chilly rain began to fall. I hugged my canine companion tighter and whispered in his ear, "I don't know about you, but God has been acting like a real asshole to me these days." The dog jumped out of my embrace and ran toward a small hole in the fence. Old Fido looked back at me, barking and wagging his tail. I looked up at the house of the drowning man I'd rescued. The back sliding glass door was the same model as the one in my mansion, and I knew it would take a sledgehammer to break through it. I could get through the wicket in the backyard, but then what? I'd be stuck on the street at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, hoping someone would walk by and notice the freezing, muddy mess. The little dog would spin in place, barking and pawing at the hole in the fence. As the rain intensified, I forced my numb hands to start pulling me back along the cold ground as I made my way toward my house. Dante was right. The third circle of hell is cold, cold, muddy rain, smeary and heavy as you get bogged down in the stinking mud. On the other hand, I now know how long eternity lasts. An eternity is the time it takes to crawl in icy mud in the pouring rain from my neighbor's hot tub to my downstairs bathroom. I thanked the previous owner for installing natural gas appliances, including a hot water tank. Fortunately for me, the plumbing and gas companies were more lenient than the electric company when it came to late payment of bills. Climbing into the tub, I turned the water selector knob counterclockwise to hot, and the water rushed out. A million painful needles stabbed into me in agony as my numb limbs warmed. Pulling a bottle of pain pills from my dirty, wet pocket, I popped the top off and swallowed a large handful dry. Another eternity passed while the water grew warm and cool and the pain began to subside. Again, I was awakened by the damned beeping of the medical machines. Damn hospital. You'd think in so many years they could make medical devices squeak differently, like slot machines in Vegas. "Welcome back," a man who looked like a nurse called cheerfully, opening the curtains. "Just couldn't get away from me, could you?" he continued, drowning out the noisy monitor. I blinked against the sunlight. Well, I could try the other team. Women suck. The muscles in his arms tensed as he lifted me up as easily as a doll changing a sheet. "Mister." "Job, women don't suck," he laughed. "And that's a big part of the problem with hetero couples." I looked at my right leg in a new cast, suspended from a familiar device of pulleys and cables. Another cast was on my left arm within 4. "Déjà vu again," I said, running my hand over the bed. The powerlifter didn't lift his eyes from the chart as he answered. "Just add to that pneumonia, 1 broken rib and 3 broken ribs, facial lacerations, bites that turned skeptical, and various cuts, bruises, and contusions. Let's not forget hypothermia. You're lucky you didn't lose any toes." Doc was upset that he had to put another cast on that foot. "You know you had to make sure the cast didn't get wet." "Sorry, I'll do better this time," I said dryly. "Do I get a discount for multiple entries?" "This place doesn't have a frequent flyer program, no medical points or 2-for-1 sales." At that moment, a well-dressed older man with a cane entered the room. He was followed by a tall, short haircut girl in a suit. My nurse stood in front of the couple. "Excuse me, sir, no visitors are allowed." A hospital administrator appeared behind the couple. "It's okay, this is Mr. Boone Talon." The nurse got a strange look on her face. "We have a wing in the hospital called Talon." "What a coincidence," said the old man with a southern accent. "I donated money for a wing for this hospital." The administrator added, "Mr. Talon is also on the board of directors." Boone Talon looked at his young companion and asked, "Am I on the board of directors?" The tall young woman nodded. Boone Talon shrugged and turned to my nurse again. "Looks like I'm on the board here too." Boone sat down in the only chair in the room and made himself comfortable before he spoke. "This is Claire." He pointed his cane at a tall, athletically built woman in a business suit. "Claire is my personal assistant, bodyguard, medical advisor, and turns me into my wife every time I try to light a good cigar." Placing his cane in his lap, he continued, "The only thing worse than one woman nagging you for enjoying a good cigar is two women nagging you for enjoying a good cigar." Boone pointed to the receptionist and my nurse. "If you'll excuse us, I'd like to speak to this young man alone." The tone was as if the man was used to giving orders and enforcing them. After a moment, it was just me, Boone, and Claire in the room, the three of us looking at each other. I grew bored. "Do I know you?" Boone was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make up his mind. "Not yet, but I owe you one. Boone Talon always pays his bills." He leaned forward. "I'm very proud of this hospital. I own more companies, banks, media outlets, and factories than I can remember. But you know what I'm most proud of?" He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a folder of money that was probably worth more than my house. Boone pulled out a small photograph and held it out to me. It was a professional photograph of a little boy holding a teddy bear. With obvious pride, Boone continued, "I hold this close to my heart. This is my only grandson, Boone. I'm willing to sell everything I own just to keep him out of harm's way." He looked at the picture and smiled, then put it and the money folder back into his suit. "Now you have kept what is most precious to me from harm." "I know what you have done for me. What can I do for you?" I was beginning to get depressed. Why did a man like this have so much and my life was crap? Was I really so insignificant that leaving me to die wasn't a big deal? Maybe it was. "Mr. Talon, I'm glad everything turned out okay for you and your grandson. If you really want to help, please have Claire use a pillow to smother me and end my suffering. I'll still sign a waiver for hospitalization." A hard expression appeared in Boone's eyes. He turned to Claire and snapped his fingers. "Give me that." Claire hesitated, but Boone sat there with his palm open. She sighed, then pulled a semi-automatic pistol from her shoulder holster and held it out to the old man. I stared at the firearm, but made no move to take it. After a full minute, Boone removed the gun, cleaned the weapon, and handed it back to Claire. "I thought so," he said. "A man who did what you did to survive doesn't end up like some petty coward. You're just depressed. By the way, I would never give you a gun." Boone sat back down. "I'm not going to tell you about when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Because, as I've found, when life gives you lemons, it's best to rub lemon juice in the eyes of those who piss you off. Because despite the costliness of life, have you noticed how it remains so popular?" I saw disgust flash across Claire's face. "What are you looking at?" I spat at her. Claire narrowed her eyes before answering. "I thought I was looking at a man. But I see I'm wrong. I'm sick of women who are all looking at me. Look, miss. Private jet ride, bad hair is ruining my life." I pulled back the bedspread to show off my left stump. "Walk a mile in my one shoe and then we'll talk. Or better yet, crawl through the backyard in freezing rain and mud. Then we'll talk." Claire looked at Boone Talon. He nodded slightly. Claire threw her left leg over the bed rail with the grace of a ballerina, making a strange clanking sound. Claire pulled up her pant leg, revealing a fancy shoe with a metal prosthetic that would fit in any Terminator movie. Turning slightly, she switched legs, and I saw that the right leg was the metal twin of the left. Claire returned to her normal standing position and smoothed her outfit before she spoke. Listen, weakling, I lost both legs to a homemade bomb that blew up our Humvee and every jock in the squad. She pointed at me. Every guy in that squad was a better man than you'll ever be. Her face turned cold. And if we're comparing war stories, when you bandage both of your missing legs at the knee and crawl 20 meters through glass and shrapnel under fire to get to cover without bleeding out, that's when you'll be able to talk. I was at a loss for words and just stared at this woman. Boone Talon leaned forward, leaning on his cane. Now that we have that sorted out, I ask you again, Job, what can Boone Talon do for you? What a difference a few weeks makes when you have a trusty helper. When I returned home from the hospital, in a limo no less, I found that my house had been completely renovated. Everything from the shingles to the sidewalk, inside and out, had been completely replaced, repaired, or remodeled. Looking at the top-priced materials and fixtures, I shuddered to think of how much this miracle had cost in such a short time. The building permits alone must have been obtained so quickly by the will of Almighty God himself. The bank president was waiting for me at the front door to tell me that all those pesky foreclosure threat letters had been settled. He nervously added, "Please inform Mr. Talon that I am personally handling this matter." A business card was placed in my hand. "This is my direct line and personal cell phone. Please call immediately if the bank can be of any assistance with either a new account, new car, credit card, or any other matter." The new medical clinic was many years farther away than the drug clinic of my past. I had some difficulties with the new prosthetic, but Claire had one, and she stopped by to give me some advice, but mostly to reprimand me when she thought I was straying from the routine set by my personal physical therapist. She must have been a sergeant in the Army because she used words I couldn't even find on Google. My legal problems related to my divorce just disappeared. I had an entire Boone Talon law firm working on my case, or so it seemed from Mary's call a few weeks later. "Gob, call off the dogs." "Please," were Mary's first words to me in months. "Hi, Mary. It's good to hear from you after all these years. I'm doing well, thanks for asking, and yes, rehab is hard, but you have to stop this work? Every day I'm bombarded with a flood of subpoenas, motions, demands for documents, paperwork, nonsense. 2/3 of them I can't understand. You know I'm a chef, and these papers could have been written in Aramaic. Yesterday, a police car came to my door and took me to court in handcuffs. I don't have a lawyer anymore, and who the hell can keep track of all these dates, places, documents, and stuff?" "You have my sympathies, Mary," I said sarcastically. "You know I don't have a job. The restaurant closed. There was no way it could withstand the parade of health inspectors and code violations they kept issuing. Oh, and I thought it was that undercover report Channel 10 News did that ruined the business. Did you know there were illegals working there? I have to say that the footage of HP, Charlie's chef having fun with the owner in his office during a church banquet, surprised the hell out of me. Oh, I saw that you got some airtime too, Mary. I don't mean to be critical, but you need to stop tasting the desserts. Don't be rude, Gob. Everyone knows a camera adds 10 pounds. Really, Mary? Exactly how many cameras were you wearing? You want to start talking about looks? How would you like it if I called you a peg? That depends. Are you going to get me a parrot? God damn it, Gob, get away from these people. A bunch of assholes follow me everywhere I go and talk to everyone I know. I can't walk into a Starbucks without 2 thugs trying to interrogate my barista. Someone's paranoid. They were interrogating my pastor, for God's sake. Mary, I'm sure they could only say good things about you. Everyone likes to know a whore. It saves time and eliminates the need for guessing on dates. Chef Ashby. Charles can attest to that. Mary's anger at old Charlie's name was obvious. Gob, you know damn well that report on Channel 10 News exposed damn HP. Charles is a fraud. The closest the asshole got to France was eating French toast at Denny's, where he worked as a waiter. All those loud stories about people and places he'd been, and people he knew were just that, loud stories. Does this mean you will no longer carry the professional name T. Mary too? Gob, I need the money. Mary, why would I call you? You took all my money. I know, I'm sorry. I just wasn't thinking straight at the time. Can't get a job because of the ruckus at the old restaurant, and your blood-sucking lawyer froze my bank account, and even took my last paycheck because I took some money out of our account when, Back then. Mary, you didn't take a little money. You took all the money, plus your blood-sucking lawyers wouldn't let me get my money out of my 401k just to survive. Let's not forget you dropped me from your health insurance after the accident. Gob, it's not my fault the insurance company denied you coverage. That's in the past. Now I'm talking about money. You know the court says I can get nothing out of the house. It's supposed to be community property. Your lawyers claim that I gave up the house. You know full well that I left because of Pablo's threats if I stayed. Mary, I have no idea what you're talking about. So be it, Gob. You can give me some money, we can deduct it from the divorce settlement. What are you driving, Mary? On what? I still have my Lexus. Fine, I'll offer you the same deal you made with me on old Chef Charlie's house. I'll pay you above market value for your Lexus. We'll use Kelly Blue Book, and you can pay me back half. No way, Gob. How am I going to get around? Are you asking me, Mary? I only have one leg, and I'm getting around. How about adding my old wheelchair to the deal? Screw you, Gob. You're the reason I'm in this mess. No, Mary, you slept with HP. Charles's boss to get into this mess, remember? You asshole, it wasn't my fault at all. Shit just happened. Shit just happened? Sounds like a good title for a dumb book. Then I heard a honk. It's been 2 years since that phone call. The divorce went through as all divorces do. Mary got very little, but the lawyers told me she just wanted to get the paperwork blizzard over with. I didn't attend the last court hearing. Now I have 2 new best friends, Baby Boone's parents. Baby and his dog are at my house so often that we just opened up the fence between the houses. Grass has taken the place of dirt, and the hot tub is securely locked when not in use. I've been at their dinner table almost every Sunday. It took several weeks before the mother could speak to me without tears about what I had done for her son and her attack. I finally told her I wouldn't come anymore if she didn't stop apologizing, and I hope to find a partner who would fight for my family as much as she did for hers. They are now expecting a baby brother or sister for little Boone. I've been asked to be godfather. Boone Talon? He's still a caring grandparent, spoiling his grandson every chance he gets. Of course, he spoils me too. One of Boone Talon's big law firms, where he is a board member, convinced the insurance company of the driver involved in my parents' accident to renegotiate their settlement in light of new facts they had originally covered up. I no longer have to work as long as I maintain a conservative lifestyle. However, I still work. What else am I supposed to do? Today we were at Pablo's Fine Latin Food for little Boone's 5th birthday party. A private party with clowns and balloons. Boone Talon was sponsoring Pablo's citizenship, and I gave him money for the place on the condition that he let me work there as a chef. I was standing in the backyard checking on the cupcake delivery when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I could have been knocked over with one of the balloons as I came face to face with my ex-wife, Mary. I was too stunned to speak, and we stood looking at each other until Mary spoke. Gob, I'm sorry to sneak up on you, but I'm out of options. I need a job. I threw her a perplexed look. Mary, or are you still called T. Mary too? You have skills, without Chef HP. Charles, you should get a job in the kitchen. Mary slapped her foot on the ground. The only thing that asshole gave me was hepatitis C. A dozen states are after him for infecting people. The clinic told him he had hepatitis C, but he didn't care about anyone but himself. Mary ran her hand through her hair, which was beginning to show streaks of gray. In 3 states, you can't work in the food industry if you have hepatitis C. I've tried working in other states with less strict rules, but you know how small our industry is. Mary rubbed her eyes. T. Mary too? She laughed without any joy. What a joke. Everyone calls me Typhoid Mary too. Now I won't be able to get a job at a hot dog joint. Mary, I'm not quite sure what you want me to do. Gob, you still have our big house, there's plenty of room. Let me live there for a while. I'll cook, clean, do the laundry. We both turned around at the sound of the door opening. I pointed to the woman standing in the doorway. Excuse me, Mary, let me introduce you to my wife. This is Claire. Claire instantly understood the situation. Hello, Mary, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I just stepped out for some air. I'm still a little nauseous. She shook hands with a stunned Mary. You know, morning sickness and all that. Mary looked ill. You're married, she muttered. more affirming than asking. Claire showed the large stone on her finger. And pregnant too, 1 year. I mean, a year married, not a year pregnant. I looked at Claire. Did you throw up and go out in the backyard by the trash cans? Claire threw me a look familiar to all husbands, and then said sweetly, Gob, you know that Pablo's friend Mary, who owns a cleaning business, is looking for help. Maybe she and Mary could help each other out. There are several places up north looking for a full-time housekeeper. Mary grabbed onto the idea like a drowning man grabbing for a life jacket. That would be great, she muttered. Can you give me the contact info? I'll stay here. Nonsense, Mary, Claire said. Come in and eat. I'll make sure you get in touch with Mary right away. I watched Claire lead a protesting Mary out the door. I shook my head. I'll never understand women. It was like I was parked diagonally in a female parallel universe. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.